So let's talk about the first one, dominant. What are the characteristics of the dominant subtype for ENTPs?
Okay, so dominant ENTPs are going to be a far more assertive version. Both of their functions. Oh, and I was gonna let you know as a listener, you who doesn't have a mic, I'm gonna do my best to make sure that these are very accessible if you're just learning type. So I want to make sure that this is simple enough so that if you are brand new to type, you can understand what we're talking about. But I'll also be putting some stuff in for the type geek. So I'll give you a word of warning. And right now, the word of warning is that I will talk a little bit about the cognitive functions of ENTPs.
Yeah.
So both of those functions of extroverted intuition, or what we call exploration, and introverted thinking or accuracy, they both have a very analytic bent. They both have an assertive energy, and they're very focused. This makes the dominant ENTP one of the most confident.
Yeah.
They don't question themselves a lot, and that brings a lot of good stuff. Dario describes them as being confident, independent experts. They enjoy a lot of variety. They're lifelong learners. This is very common for all ENTPs. They are particularly insightful problem solvers, particularly when they grab solid frameworks. Cheerful, sophisticated, in charge of their lives. That's the dominant part. And serious when they get into work. So they take work very seriously. And that's a part of the component of being a dominant ENTP. Of course, they're out-of-the-box thinkers. They connect stuff in unusual ways. That's very common for all ENTPs. But I think what really helps them is that they are good at making things happen and are more professional. There's like a professionalism to a dominant ENTP. Again, they're serious about work and they have a more in-charge style. So they're more likely to be managers. They're more likely to be in a leadership position than other ENTP types. They are, it's hard to really communicate the specific careers this style of ENTP will be good at because they're jack of all trades. They're kind of good at whatever they set their mind to. So it's more about interest than it is specific career path field.
Yeah.
But there are some careers that are better than others. So I'll name some of those. But whether it's business, education, the social sciences, all of it will appeal. Now, I think what's really important is that what narrows some of this down is that the dominant ENTP is fascinated by human problems. And so as long as they're problem solving and there's a human component to it, like a people problem component, then it's going to be even more interesting. So it's not just like an analyst in the background. It's not somebody who's just trying to solve any problem. There's going to be, of course, a component in there that's inventiveness is interesting. And they might actually be a literal inventor, but the problem-solving component lights up way more if there's a human aspect to it and not just a digital aspect.
Yeah, I almost imagine less the creative, like, inventor type, but more the entrepreneur type that wants to start a business, get it growing, serve people, tapping into the customers. Like, this is the leadership-styled ENTP.
Yep. Yeah.
Is the dominant.
Yep, exactly. They're really good at assisting other people's structures and processes, but they don't themselves like to have to build structures and processes. And so they want a more free-form style, even though they would like to have a lot more... there's a desire for high-scaled influence without necessarily having to build the structure underneath in order to support it. So they're usually supportive of other people's structures, but they still want to be in a more dominant position there. So that kind of narrows some of the options, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And entrepreneur would be one of them. When you're at the beginning of something, you don't necessarily have to have this like really buttoned down structure, but you're still the most influential person in making all the decisions. And that's a sweet spot. So it's not uncommon for dominant ENTPs to start their own businesses for that very reason. But some of the other possibilities are things like executive coach, right?
Yeah.
You're coaching somebody who's at the top, like maybe a C-level coach, a social scientist, training and development specialist, a professor or an educator of some sort, a marketing strategist. These would all be right up a dominant ENTP's alley.
Okay. And the neurotransmitter this is associated with is testosterone. That would be its preference. Like this style would probably prefer that over some of the other chemicals.